Can everyone hear me? Okay. Everyone who has gone to elementary or middle school in the United States knows what the Pledge of Allegiance is. It is when the entire class, the entire school, stands up, puts their hands over their hearts, and says those famous words. Now, many students say these words every time that the announcer tells them to, without actually thinking about what they're saying. By a show of hands, how many of you have thought about the meanings of the words of the pledge? Now, to be more specific, how many of you have thought about the meaning of the specific phrase, liberty and justice for all? If you're anything like me, then you've just mindlessly been saying these words without actually thinking about what they meant. I was like that, until I seriously contemplated on the meaning of these words. Now, the pledge was first written in the year 1887, and a couple years later, in the year 1892, the pledge was modified, and in this draft, the words, liberty and justice for all were added. In today's age of 2016, civilizations, medicine, technology, and even society itself have all made significant advances. But we are still struggling to treat everyone, everywhere, equally and fairly. I believe that's because we set this as a basic goal. Liberty and justice for all. I believe it was meant as a minimum standard. When you look in Congressional Record 91, you'll find a brief synopsis of the story of the origin of the pledge, taken from the brief narrative by Francis Bellamy, who happens to be the person who first added the words liberty and justice for all to the pledge. In this narrative, Bellamy himself states that liberty and justice were surely basic, were undebatable, and were all that any one nation could handle. He believed that anything greater than these two little concepts was something that our nation as a whole couldn't handle. These concepts were basic. They're the standard of what a huge nation like ours should be able to handle. This was the standard that Bellamy believed our nation could live up to, and he was thinking about it from a perspective that is over 120 years older than ours today. But after 120 years, we're still struggling to treat everyone equally and fairly. We're still struggling to achieve a 120-year-old minimum standard. By definition, the minimum of something is the least or smallest amount or quantity possible, attainable, or required. To meet the minimum, you have to do just enough. At times, you have to apply little to no effort at what you're doing in order to reach that set standard. We can see minimum standards set in just about every aspect of our lives. In school, it is considered passing if you get a C on a final or in your class. When in the workplace, many people do just enough so that they aren't fired from their jobs. When dealing with family, many people have learned to just respect their parents without actually interacting with them. And when you look at our nation as a whole, you can see that we're just reaching the minimum standard of treating all people fairly. When you look at all these ideas, you can see that when you just strive for the minimum standard, people tend to fail. As an example of justice for all, the standards that we set over 100 years ago are still not being met. When you think about equality for women, different cultures, and members of the LGBT community. This is because, while the standards that we've been striving for never changed, the society that we lived in did. In terms of your academic life, if you get C's on all of your tests in school, this is what is considered as passing. But even if you're passing, this will not reflect well on your GPA or your transcripts in general. These grades exemplify the pure essence of someone who is doing the bare minimum. And along with these grades, someone who is just achieving the minimum standard in terms of school most likely isn't going to participate in any extracurricular activities that are going to help them prepare for their future. This type of student template is greatly frowned upon by colleges because it shows a lack of motivation to do anything, a lack of any type of leadership, and it shows that you weren't trying to do anything past the minimum standard that you would blindly set your eyes on. Also, when you look at minimum standards in the workplace, you're bound to see failure. When you do just enough so that you aren't fired from your job, it will not end well for you. When it comes time for your company to reevaluate what members of the staff they really need, they're going to look at everyone's performance. Joe, who goes above and beyond with his work, is going to be compared to you, someone who's doing just enough. someone who's just barely reaching the minimum in terms of the amount of work they do and the type of quality that work is. Joe's standards of getting laid off are far smaller when compared to yours. And finally, when you do just enough and you only respect your parents, you're gonna miss them when they eventually pass away. You can either just respect them and get annoyed when they try to get involved with your life, or you can welcome them into your life and enjoy every moment that you share with them. Because of all these things, my parents have taught me to always do more than the minimum, to reach beyond, to fundamentally make a difference in this world. They have told me to always do my best in whatever I do, so that I can become successful later in life. They constantly encourage me to do more than any minimum standard that is set before me. And because of them, I strive to become a good leader. Distinguished guests, there have been many minimum standards that have been set in our society today. And in this time and age, many people are only stretching and reaching toward these small achievements. To me, liberty and justice for all is the minimum. It's meant to set the foundation of what we should be striving for. Please, join me in reaching past the minimum. Together, we can make a significant and long-lasting difference in this world. Thank you.